Route 616, your home for all things Marvel main continuity. Hello everybody, this is RJ here, and this week we have one less co-host, but that will be alright. We can survive 1 week without Dan. I do have Bill with me this week though, so...
And I will be this podcast's target of unrestrained ageism.
I don't think there'll be as much ageism this week. In reality, Dan just couldn't face us on the podcast this week after losing to Nottingham Forest last weekend, but,
Fuck, I wasn't expecting you to go for this football joke.
No, he just had to work a weird shift, so he couldn't be on this week. But, that would have been my intro for him, by the way. I was gonna fucking bring him right down from the start, but here we are.
Dude, you're rooting for Wolves this year. You can't mock anyone's football team.
Way to out me. Okay. Anyways.
I keep stuff about, sexuality, gender identity, that sort of thing quiet without people's permission. Football is fair game to be outed.
Fair enough. So this week, we are going to finish off our big stretch of Thor that we've been on with the last four of our Tales of Asgard stories. Which aren't all Tales of Asgard, technically, but they're 5-page filler stories, that's what I'm going to call them.
No, they're all Tales.
Oh, are they? Okay, good. I thought
it's going to be Tales of Asgard as long as there's 5-page backups in Thor's book.
Okay, good. So we have issues 101, 102, 103, and 104 of Journey in the Mystery of the Sea stories, the 5 pages. And then after that, we finally get some variety after a few weeks here. And we go into Avengers issue number 3, and then we go into Fantastic Four number 22, and we will end off with Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos issue number 5. So it should be a pretty good week, really, because the 5 pages are mostly pretty fun, and then we have some pretty solid regular issues after that. Well, one might not be so much, but here we are.
I mean, it was fine.
It was fine.
It's not going to be an all-time great, but
we both know which one we're talking about.
Yeah. It's the Mole Man.
It is. But here we are. We're going to start off with Journey into Mystery, issue 101. If I seem a little slow off the cuff today, I have a headache, so it might affect me at some point, unless I just get going and it, poof, disappears. But hopefully that does happen, but we'll see. This is a 5-page story, as is the Tales of Asgard, December 1963 release. We have Stan Lee, Jack Kirby on this one, George Russo's helping on inks, and then we have Artie Simek lettering. And I'm going to take this first one, and this story is called The Invasion of Asgard. So we see Stan's Heimdall here, as he guards the Rainbow Bridge. I forgot Heimdall was in this issue. He is immovable and he is eternally vigilant. We see a young Thor approach and call it to Heimdall, and he says that he has heard the forces of evil are about to attack Asgard, and he came to help Heimdall on the Rainbow Bridge.
Here's a question for you. What kind of rainbow has 2 black stripes?
This sounds like one corrupted by the Straits, but anyway. They
it's not
have
black and orange. We don't have to worry about that.
It says there's a note here that addresses the forces of evil, and it says that the forces of evil are all sinister, powerful menaces which would destroy a noble Asgard, because we needed that explanation.
I was going to make that same joke if you didn't.
So Heimdall tells Thor to leave him. There's man's work to be done here, and of course Heimdall is the man here. Thor is young, so Loki then takes Thor aside, and he's like, "Thor, come help me, brother. There is a secret entrance that they're gonna use to come attack Asgard." He's like, "Look, it's this hole in this wall. They could easily come here. We better defend this area." And so Thor gets tricked by Loki into fighting all these enemies of Asgard, as we learn that Loki created the secret entrance himself and told the enemies of Asgard where this entrance was. So Thor is left to battle and fight all these fiends, and then we see he gets trapped and starts turning into a tree from some magic, but we see Heimdall and Odin and other Asgardians come to Thor's rescue, and Thor is made out, Loki's plan backfires as Thor is made out to be this big hero from defending Asgard from all of Asgard's enemies, and yeah, so Loki's plan backfires, and that's pretty much what this issue's about. What this 5-page story's about. And next issue, we're promised another entry in the most widely acclaimed entries in comics magazines. So woo, there we go.
Next issue's a pretty big one, I think.
I don't remember.
Debut of Hela.
Oh, shit. Nice. Okay.
Unfortunately, this issue is nowhere near as important.
I think
fine.
I disagree with you on this one, apparently.
It works as a story. There's no problems with it, but there's just not really anything interesting about it either.
I solidly enjoyed this one, apparently, because I gave it 4 stars. So apparently I really enjoyed it.
I gave it 3. I mean, it was there. I have no problems with this story. It's just it's filler. Like, if I never read this, my life would be exactly the same.
That's fair enough.
It didn't even teach me anything interesting about Thor and Loki. It's just a fight.
Fair enough. I'm not going to argue with you on that one. I could have also just been in a really good mood when I read it too. So that sometimes helps.
You were more down on the regular Thor stories, so that probably made this seem much better by comparison.
That could be the case. But we'll move right on. I'm not going to lie, I kind of just want to get through this Thor stretch. I'm going to move right forward to issue 102's C story. Story titled Death Comes to Thor. Stan Lee, Jack Kirby together once more. And we have Paul Ryman on inks, for the story at least. And then we have Artie Simic on letters. And this is from January 1964. And of course, 5 pages if you've been going along with us. So we open up with Thor as he has at last found the 3 fates, and they can tell him if he shall be rewarded Odin's magic hammer. Another editor's note. This should be good. The editors are pleased to announce that Tales of Asgard has become one of the most popular series in comicdom and has won itself a permanent place among the Marvel roster of fabulous features. So this is when Tales of Asgard officially becomes a regular for Marvel and Thor. So great.
It's probably the longest running backup too. I think it goes solid for about 3 or 4 years.
So far, it deserves it. So
the quality never really falls.
That's good to hear. So
there's one story here and there that's not that good, but overall, it's consistently 3 stars for me.
Fair enough. That's cool. That's great. I'm excited with that. I like these. So, the 3 fates census requests an answer of Thor before the lips can even leave his before the question can even leave his lips. This is the headache getting to me now. So they say that he can win Odin's enchanted hammer, but you will have to meet death first. Dun dun dun. So Thor realizes that means he's kind of doomed, but he will never stop trying. And he makes his way back to Asgard and finds a downed Balder.
They clearly completely redesigned Balder by the time he becomes a regular in Thor.
Yeah. And then Balder warns Thor how storm giants have attacked and seized his sister Sif, who I completely forgot debuted in this. So
that's because I don't think she does. I don't think you ever
doesn't.
see Sif in this. They just mention her name.
That could be case.
There is a Sif. She's just even
very
more
different.
off-model than Balder.
That's what I thought in my head, but I wasn't sure.
I think she's so far off that they didn't even count her as an appearance.
Thor goes to save the day, and he fights some storm giants along the way, breaking a path apart to make them fall through. So he gets up to where Sif's being held, who is a blonde-haired woman here that just looks like a regular woman, and we see Thor face to face with the real important appearance of this issue, and Hela. So Thor is like, I offer myself in her place. Let me feel your fatal touch. I know no fear, but set Sif free. And Hela obliges and gives Thor the touch of death, which, she actually doesn't give him the touch of death. She's like, I cannot do it. Cannot take a life which is so young, so brave, and so noble. Here, take Sif. And that's pretty much what happens. So.
At this point, we're still somewhat following actual Norse mythology, because Marvel Comics Hela, as we're going to see her even in Tales of Asgard not too far into the future, would be more than happy to take Thor's life in those circumstances, because she's more the conventional villain. At this point, she's being portrayed more as like an actual impartial arbiter of death.
Yeah, this is a very different Hela. Every character in this little 5-pager is very different to what they become. Of course,
and
especially
I checked
Sif.
the blonde, Sue Storm-looking Sif does in fact count as her first appearance.
Yeah, I looked too. She does indeed. Of course, this isn't Balder's first appearance, since technically in our reading order, 104's A story came first, but technically in release, this would be his first appearance.
Yeah, this would be where they introduced the concept of him, but just narrative structure forced him to go earlier.
Yeah, very different to the Balder that we know.
Even the Balder that showed up literally in issue 104, so that's how fast they gave up on this look.
Yeah, exactly. Sif doesn't appear for a long time, to where I assume she becomes the Sif we more know. She doesn't become again until 136.
She's the regular Sif next time you see her.
That's good.
That's why I completely forgot she was even in this issue, because, it's
Hela
not Sif.
Hela doesn't appear for a while either, until issue 133's B story, so that's interesting. Okay, that's pretty much all the notes on that. I gave this one 3 stars. So
I gave it 3 stars as well.
So yeah. I don't know. It was kind of just... It wasn't that interesting.
It's tough to rate these any away from 3 stars, because they're not pointless and dumb like the other backup little like stories by the Wasp or by the Watcher or so, where they're just reprinting old 4-page sci-fi stories. But there's not enough space for them to really get good either.
Yeah, that's very true. So yeah, I guess we will move on to issue 103 here, which will be the first of Bill's stories for this week. We have Stan Lee and Jack Kirby here. Chick Stone joins on ink, so this should take a relative jump in art. This one's called Thor's Mission to Mimir. R.D. Simic does letters again on this, and another 5-pager. February 1964 release on this one, and off we go.
This is also the point where they got a new idea of what they were going to do with Tales of Asgard, because there is a lot in this one for 5 pages. We open with Thor amongst the trolls being taken to their king. Actually, no, they're dwarves. They're just drawn as the trolls. These early Tales of Asgard had inconsistent art direction. But anyway, Thor's taken to see King Sindri, king of the dwarves, where he's given Skip Bladnir his enchanted chip that will actually come back, although I don't know if it's named when it returns. And it can shrink down to a tiny little model, but then it can also expand to a full-sized longship and fly through the air. and Thor uses it to fly and sail to the realm of Mimir, where he's going for reasons that are not disclosed at this point. He arrives in Mimir, fights a dragon, gets into a hammer-off with a great big pig, and he's a pig god, and he's like, it's not size that matters, it's how you use it, and then he smashes the pig's hammer with his smaller hammer. And he continues his journey and eventually arrives at did they give this guy a name? Can't remember if they actually give this guy a name.
Not sure. Full transparency, I'm not even looking at the story.
Yeah. Oh, it's King Mimir. He's just named after the realm.
Nice.
Yeah. And Thor arrives and presents him with a branch of Yggdrasil, and he knows what he needs to do, so he takes it and he puts it into his fountain and stirs the water, which causes it to spill onto the earth below, where it spills, or onto Midgard below, to be clear, and it spills onto a pair of trees, an alder and ash, that were planted before by Odin, which turn into a man and woman, creating humans. And with his mission completed, Thor sails off back to Asgard, and that's the end of the story. And we're teased that the next month we're going to get biographies of the dwellers of Asgard. And our first subject will be Heimdall. And we're also informed that unlike the other stories that were loosely inspired by Norse mythology, they lifted this one directly from Norse mythology. But I don't think that's entirely accurate, because from what I remember, Thor wasn't actually involved in the forming immortals on Midgard. Like, the methodology was accurate, but Thor being added, I believe, was a Marvel thing, unless I'm remembering that wrong.
My only note on this one is
It's been a few years since I've read the Eddas.
My only note on this one is that I didn't enjoy it as much as the others, so that covers
Good thing
it.
we're having a change of pace for the next issue, then.
Yeah, I gave this one 2 stars. A spoiler alert, my one note for the next one is I love Heimdall, so... so yeah.
I kept this one at 3 stars. It was fine. They tried to do an awful lot with it, but it's 5 pages. It flew by. There was nothing that offended my intelligence. It probably should have been 2 stories. They should have done one of Thor getting Skipbladnir and then one of him actually going to Mimir.
Yeah, fair enough.
Anyway, moving on, because I've got nothing else on that one either.
Yeah, me neither. Issue 104, Journey in the Mystery, Sea Story, Heimdall, Guardian of the Mystic Rainbow Bridge. Woo! Don Heck inks this one, let's go. And Artie Simic still on letters, like the main boy he is. And then we have, this is a March 1964 release and a 5-page story, and Bill, take us off.
And it's definitely got the same limited color palette that the main issue had, which when paired with Don Heck's line work isn't ideal. But anyway, we open with Heimdall standing before Odin, and he's been summoned by Odin because Odin is having a job fair, and he's trying to recruit someone to be the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge. And somehow they have filler in a 5-page story when they have a couple of panels of trolls repairing Asgard after the last attack that came over the bridge with no witnesses. But anyway, he's gathered 3 candidates to try to figure out who will be the guardian of the bridge going forward. Agnar the Fierce, who has really, really good lungs, and he blows, and we will never hear of him again. And then we cut over to Gotron the Agile, who's so agile he only gets one panel to try to explain why he's worthy. And then we come over to our star, Heimdall. And Heimdall discusses how he's got amazing hearing. And so to prove it, he goes outside and he puts his ear on the ground and he hears a plant growing in the hills. And so Odin sends a messenger to go see if he's bullshitting. And he goes out into these hills that have been scorched completely and have no life in them. And he finds a plant growing. So naturally, instead of leaving it so the ecology can return to the plant area, he digs it up and takes it back to Odin. But anyway, Heimdall then points out that it's not just his hearing. He can see really well, too. And so he mentions a band of storm giants that are still 2 days away. And so Odin gathers a war party, goes and kills the storm giants, and because of both these claims being proven true, he appoints Heimdall the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge. And Heimdall stands on the strangely monochromatic Rainbow Bridge as the story ends, teasing us that next issue we'll hear about the time Heimdall failed.
Oh, nice. I haven't gotten there yet, so I haven't read that one. I like this one a lot. This is one of my higher ranking issues of the whole month. I gave it 4 stars.
It stayed at a steady 3 for me. If anything, I liked this one a little less because it kind of just felt like a tutorial on what Heimdall's powers were.
It completely got bumped up for me for being about Heimdall, because I love Heimdall. But yeah. That's pretty much it on that one, I guess. I'm gonna look real fast. I don't think there was anything other for that. Oh, Crate King Brimer's back next issue too. Okay, interesting. None of the other ones were important, though, like you said. So, alright, yeah, I think that about covers that. Off we go. If you haven't gathered, this is going to be a relatively quick episode since we had 4 or 5 page stories, and now we have 3 full stories next to end this off. But
I think the 3 full page stories are going to take us a bunch.
They could.
A lot of stuff happens in 2 of them. We might be able to get through Fury fairly quickly, but I kind of doubt that. And then we've got the end of the month stuff too, so.
Yeah, it is the last episode of the month, so stay tuned for our poll list and best and worst of the month segments. Now we go to what is probably the most packed full of content issue of the month in Avengers issue number 3, as the Avengers meet Submariner. And this is done by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and Paul Reinman is inking this, and Sam Rosen's on letters, the other main letterer. And then November 1963, this was released. A 25-page story. Such a big story, they gave it 3 extra pages.
Yeah, I was surprised when we got to about page 20 and the story felt nowhere near wrapping it up. I was expecting some real bullshit at the end there, but the extra 3 pages carried it through.
Yeah, I noticed at the start that it gave the extra pages, so I was like, oh shit. So yeah.
I read the page count going in the first time I read it. When I'm rereading them for the podcast, I usually forget.
Fair enough. And Bill already knows how many notes I had for this one, so a lot happened in this one. I probably won't read all my notes, but here we are. On the cover, we are told this is the issue we've been waiting for. It's the Hulk and Submariner versus the Avengers. And I will already say, these Avengers issues, if you ignore issue number 2, have relatively been getting better as they go along. We are also told this is one of the greatest battles of all time, so we'll see about that. And then on the opening page, we get a fun little opening page with the Avengers' faces all over and blah, 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 and we're told the Avengers meet Submariner. And this is where we are told on the first page that we will not see the Submariner in this story until page 15, which I was dying laughing reading that the first time that I read this. And by the first time, I mean the only time, because I don't reread these like that.
Well, the difference is you read them a month ago. I read them 4 years ago.
Exactly. Bill kind of has to reread them partially. So we then move into the story as the Avengers are holding a meeting at Stark's company, in the home of Tony Stark. Excuse me, a monthly meeting. But the team doesn't know that Iron
Avengers
Man.
Mansion, but they haven't formalized
Fair
it
enough.
yet. But it's Avengers Mansion, and they at some point it just is Avengers Mansion. There's not really a point where it is formally gifted to them or so in the story. It's just like, yeah, Tony lets us stay here all the time.
Yeah, so they're in the home of Tony Stark. They don't know Tony's Iron Man, though, and Iron Man thinks to himself about that throughout this here. But we see they want some help. They want to try and get the Hulk back because they didn't like how last issue ended with the Hulk leaving the team, and they didn't mean for that to happen. So they want to find the Hulk, make sure he's not rampaging. I think they possibly talk about getting him back on the team here, but here we are. So Iron Man shows an invention where he can project his image to be sent to any destination. Pretty advanced technology. And we see him start sending out to locations to try and get some help to bring in the Hulk. So his first location is the Baxter Building, where we see Thing with his trench coat on, classic look here, and he's like, "Sorry, pal, I can't help you. I got a date tonight." So Thing's going on a date with Alicia, which is nice. We then see him go and talk to Human Torch and Mr. Fantastic, and Torch points out how they've got company, and Reed's like, "Oh, it's Iron Man. I'll turn off the flame meter that they're working with," and Iron Man's like, "The Avengers are trying to find the Hulk," and Mr. Fantastic's like, "I'd like to help, but I just can see him in the middle of an experiment in flame-controlled environment, so I'm afraid Torch and I can't stop now." And then Sue just pops in and is like, "Yeah, I'm leaving for a fashion show, so I won't be helping either."
The character assassination of women continues.
Yes. So Iron Man then somehow finds Spider-Man here as he's winning and fighting crime, and Spider-Man is completely a dick to him here, which is fucking hilarious.
I mean, Spider-Man deserves to be a dick to anyone in this magazine who thought it was a good idea to draw him like that.
Yeah,
There's not one good panel of Spider-Man. In fact, in one of them, it looks like they fucked up drawing his head and drew a second one, just left the lines for the first one there, and then the colorist colored both of them in.
There's a reason.
If you're looking for what I'm talking about, it's the one where he's webbing the guys up in the middle of the alley.
There's a reason Steve Ditko is Spider-Man reigns supreme. Jack Kirby does not do a great Spider-Man. But anyway,
usually it's better than this. I don't know what the hell happened. It's got to be Paul Reinman's inking.
It must be. I don't know. Paul Reinman isn't an inker I go to when I think of the great inkers we've seen so far. So
I tend to forget he exists. He's not one of the worst, but he's not good either.
He seems to be like the last on their rotation of inkers if they really need somebody. So
yeah.
But we then see Iron Man project himself into the X-Mansion as he goes and tries to get help from the X-Men, but Charles Xavier is like, "What are you doing?" and show up in their training period. And then Iron Man's like, "Oh, sorry, but we need the help with the Hulk trying to we'd appreciate any help, blah, blah, blah." And Iron Man's like, "I took the liberty of barging in because the Angel had told me to contact you guys if I ever needed a favor." So that's referencing the crossover with issue 49 of Tales of Suspense. And Charles is like, "Well, we should notify you if we can help, but now is our training session, so we can't help you right now." I had a note here, so I'll talk about that. I did enjoy Iron Man trying to recruit everybody that we've met in these comics so far. That was pretty cool. All the different heroes from other magazines, so that was fun.
It really was. Although the cynic in me wonders if maybe at this point Avengers was their best-selling team book, so they had to plug the other teams.
So
I can't see it not being Fantastic Four, but this just kind of feels like a marketing ploy.
It probably is, yeah. Iron Man goes back with no help. Goes back to the Avengers with no help. And then this is where Thor suggested they contact young Rick Jones, and this is where Bill was arthur-fisting at the thought of contacting Rick Jones. I almost called him Bill Jones.
Yeah, this is coming up on the point where the Team Brigade starts getting annoying by being involved in all these superhero shenanigans, despite being literal teenagers with no superpowers who just, like, own radios.
So Rick receives the Avengers message and then has the Team Brigade looking out for Hulk, but doesn't need it because Rick Jones goes outside and happens to find the Hulk reaching into a lake as we see him pulling a car out. And an interesting note here is that Hulk's actually kind of trying to be a little more heroic here, it seems, for a bit. But
despite so far this issue being really good with the continuity, at this point they've rolled back Hulk to the point where he had Banner's personality, but was just more vicious, rather than the completely bestial Hulk that we had in Avengers 1 and 2.
Yeah. So Rick Jones tells Hulk how the police will be coming soon, so they've got to get back to his cave, in which Hulk actually listens, and they turn him back to Bruce Banner. Rick Jones points out once more that he gets worse each time that he becomes the Hulk and goes back to being Bruce Banner. So now Doc Banner needs some rest. So Rick Jones is worried as he sits outside. But what's this? Bruce Banner has turned back into the Hulk in his sleep, and the Hulk is ready to rampage. And we go from a decently nice Hulk to kind of a more evil Hulk for the rest of this issue.
I think that's the last time that the gamma ray machine was ever effective.
Probably. I think
it turns up once more, and Hulk just destroys it.
I think this issue is supposed to be taken as a turning point for the Hulk, which is a pretty cool prospect for
they're
the
trying
future
to
of the
rewrite
character.
Hulk into more of the Hulk we know.
So Hulk's like, why shouldn't I be the Hulk? Why be a puny human? I can be the most powerful man walking the earth. And so, with a thunderclap, he breaks the wall open. Rick Jones tries to stop him, but is unsuccessful. And Rick Jones sends a message to the Avengers that the Hulk is on a rampage. Classic Hulk. So, Iron Man armors up. Hank and Jan suit up. And my God, is it nice to see Hank as Ant-Man for once. And we see Donald Blake strike his cane against the ground. And the team is ready to go. So Iron Man tracks down the Hulk and is immediately pounded on. Iron Man strikes back and actually brings Hulk down with some magnetic rays for a second, but Hulk fights back once more, shooting thorns from a cactus at Iron Man, which almost strike the ant-sized Hank and Jan while they're flying in.
I forgot how dumb that idea was. I just read this week, and I already forgot how dumb that was.
They keep fighting until Thor finally enters the battle, and so Hulk enters a handicap match here. So Hulk's like, I'm getting out of here, and jumps on a train. He breaks part of the train off and throws it at the two Avengers. But Thor smashes it to bits. I hope there was nothing valuable in there.
It looks like it was empty.
Yeah, it does.
Or Kirby got lazy about inking details.
Pretty convenient.
Or penciling details.
I was shocked halfway through this issue how fun this was. So that was nice.
Overall, the extra pages really helped this issue.
It did.
Because in a normal book, we'd be on page 8, page 9 right now. We're on page 13. And just spacing everything out means that you're not having to slog through panel after panel of just description of what's happening. They give room to actually draw what's happening.
The story they want to tell.
It just expand the little details that I jokingly call, or not so jokingly sometimes, call filler in other issues. Work here because it's when the whole book is like that. It's not just we filled 2 pages with pointless stuff and then moved back onto the story. It actually just gives it a nice slower pace.
The extra pages gives them time to let the story they actually want to tell here breathe, which is actually it's very interesting the story they are telling here. Really, this is the rewriting of of Hulk's character, and this is showing a new team dynamics, and we're getting some Mariner here in a few pages.
It gives us the best summary of every member of the Avengers' powers, too, because they all get to use them on Hulk.
It's funny reading these now and kind of seeing how... I think it's mostly a Stan fan of really wanting to get the Hulk character over. And he is committing to that, and I mean, it worked out in the end, but... Yeah,
I think Hulk was definitely Stan's passion project.
I think so, too, because we know his obsession with Jekyll and Hyde, so...
Yeah, we saw the dark side of that. One might almost say to Hyde earlier in Thor this month.
Very true.
Dan's not here. I've got to fill in on bad puns.
Oh, no. I thought we were free this week. So, the battle continues, and
you better hide if you want that.
Fuck off.
That one was pure Dan.
Oh, that was so bad.
I know.
Oh my god. Oh, that was literally as bad as his. So Giant Man finally joins the battle. Isn't that successful though, as he's not knocked down by the end of the page. And then we see Hulk escape in the back of a waste disposal truck that disposes his waste into the ocean. Yeah.
They haven't.
I think it's rocks and stuff. I think. Sand
yeah,
in there,
I think
maybe.
they're just They're building a pier or something, and they're just dumping gravel in the water.
Yeah, it's not actually waste. It's like it's gravel or sand or something. So they're not fully polluting the oceans here.
They haven't completely retconned Hulk. I want to mention that here yet because he still has the higher intelligence than he will have.
Yes.
Because Ryan kind of glossed over it, but the way he escapes from Giant Man on the train is he grabs a bunch of bags of flour and throws them into the smokestack, so it blows flour into everyone's face, and then they can't see what's going on, and he can just leave.
Yeah, Hulk can still speak in full sentences and still has a higher intellect. That will change. They're playing with the elements of the character still.
It's the most recognizable Hulk has been in any issue so far of any book.
Very true. So Hulk's now underwater, but he gets pulled aboard a ship. And this is where Namor enters the story, as he's doing something.
He's perving on Hulk with like some sort of view screen.
Yeah, he's pretty much doing that. So Hulk and Namor meet on an island here, and they immediately start fighting one another, as you do. Namor shows his superiority complex once again, and Hulk, of course, has a bit of one himself, so they start fighting. And they kind of come to a standstill, although Namor does get the upper hand when he gets Hulk in the water and kind of gets him tired out for a minute. So Hulk's like, "You're pretty tough for such a little guy," and they're like, "Hey, we should work together and take down the Avengers." And yeah, so here comes the second half of this story. Hulk and Namor team together against the Avengers. Okay, that's some filler. And then
and offensive filler at that if you're talking about the interactions with the Wasp.
I am. That's why I was skipping over the... You knew exactly what I was looking at.
Well, I'm paging through this as you are. And we go from Thor... Fuck. We've been doing too many Thors. We go from Namor and Hulk plotting to defeat the Avengers to Hank holding Jan up by the ass.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty obvious what you're talking about.
I think she had
probably wanted
Thor.
to shag Thor again.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. So the Avengers.
Although I do want to actually mention something about that little bit of filler, because it's actually some of the better writing they did on Jan. Because for the entire run of Avengers and bleeding into other books, she's appeared to be just completely man-crazed. And anytime any guy walks in front of her, she's just completely obsessed with how hot they are. And that's all she can think about. And then in this scene, it's revealed that she's actually just doing it to make Hank jealous so he'll pay attention to her.
Yeah, that was a nice little detail here.
Unfortunately, they immediately forget that, and she stays as the man-crazed Jan for a while longer. But the fact that they tried to rehabilitate it here was a nice touch.
Yeah. So the Avengers group together, and the battle with Namor and Hulk begins. I personally think the issue lost a little steam when Namor actually came into it, but here we are.
It did. It would have been better if this was just the Hulk and the next issue was Namor. But they've been very ambitious about stringing all the Avengers issues together much more coherently than other titles.
Yeah. It is hilarious.
And also I want to point out the Avengers flying on Elon Musk's rocket ship. Because that's totally the penis rocket, just painted red.
You would fucking say that, too. I didn't even have a joke for that. That's wild. I do love that straight fucking away once Hulk and Namor start working together, they plan to betray one another when the time comes, and that is fucking hilarious. And that's
anyone who ever teams up with Namor. Where I am in the order now, I'm still in a supervillain team up, which is Namor and Doctor Doom, and they're constantly plotting to betray each other too.
So, the Avengers go back and forth with the deadly duo for quite a while here, and we see Wasp almost crushed by some rocks, and she's shrunk down, almost crushed by her own teammates. Then Giant Man and Namor engage in battle, and Namor gets thrown at Iron Man. I think the part where Jan got shrunk and almost killed and everything is because of a Hulk thunderclap or something, and I had a note there that Janet should probably be at least deaf after that.
They strongly imply that she was deafened by it.
Yeah.
And I don't think she responds to anything anyone else says to her for the rest of the issue. I'm just flipping through real quick. I don't see her. She has thought balloons. Yeah, she literally doesn't respond to anyone else's comments for the rest of the issue.
Okay, so she is deafened, just not permanently.
Yeah, because the only time she's... Well, if you rupture an eardrum, it will heal.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the only time she speaks for the rest of the issue is addressing Thor, but not responding to anything.
Okay, good. There is... I just must not have picked up on that when I read the rest of the issue.
I didn't think of it until you mentioned it right now. I mean, I thought of her probably being deafened when it happened, but I never really followed up on it. But I just paged through the last 6 pages and nothing.
A fun bit ensues as Namor and Hulk fight Thor for Mjolnir, which is it's kind of funny, and Hulk really struggles to get his hands on it there for a moment. But of course, none that are. If you're not worthy, you can't pick up that fucker.
Or apparently rip it out of Thor's grasp, which is not a power they stick with, but it makes perfect sense because if you can't lift it, you can't get it out of his hand.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. I had a moment where I popped for Namor's winged feet being pretty prominent if you're paying attention here. As they're fighting, suddenly Hulk transforms back into Dr. Bruce Banner, but thankfully nobody sees. And he runs away, which Namor believes just means that the Hulk has turned on him. And that's how they lose the upper hand, and Namor ends up retreating back into the ocean. So that's where we were left off, and we wonder what will come next. But we are left with a note that says, one thing you've learned to expect from Marvel is to expect the unexpected, and we promise you a movie-length tale in next issue's Avengers, which will feature super characters and super surprises to exceed your wildest expectations. So, that was Avengers number 3, by far the best issue of Avengers so far.
Yeah, if they stayed like this, I would have loved Avengers.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. That was just a pretty fun issue. There was, honestly, there was parts that if it was tackled a little better in parts, this could have almost been a 5-star issue. But a solid 4 stars for me. It's really good. So, yeah.
It was just a 3-star for me. Being blue-balled on the Namor fight at the end really took the speed out of it. And even though that story's picked up in Avengers 4, it's not like immediately after time passes. So for now, we just get kind of an abortive fight with Namor, and he just leaves. And then Hulk just left. So in the end, the fight just kind of fizzles out, which kept it from getting any higher than a 3 for me.
Fair enough.
It's the time limit draw of comics.
It is. There went Broadway. So, one could say, I don't know where I was going there. I had to look up a word and I didn't look it up in time. So, I don't know. I thought it was really fun. Obviously, I enjoyed it a bit more than Bill with the higher rating, but yeah. I don't know. Anyways, that's all I have on that one. So I think it's time we move on to our favorite issue of this week, Fantastic Four number 22, as we see the return of the Mole Man. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby going here. George Russo's is on inks, and we have Sam Rosen on letters. And this is an October 1963 release, a 22-page story. And Bill, this one's for you.
Yes. So this story opens with just random Fantastic Four shenanigans in the Baxter building. They're messing around with some sort of machine Reed's made to try to help Sue's powers. And it starts off looking like their tendency to just do like 5 or 6 pages of filler before they get on to the actual story. But this time it actually has some pretty significant meaning because, as usual, Johnny and Ben get fighting and they almost burn down the building. And in the ensuing chaos, Sue ends up creating a force field around herself to prevent her from getting sprayed with the fire extinguisher that Ben tries to use on Johnny. And so instead of just goofing around with the comedy they normally put, we get a couple pages of them exploring Sue's new force field powers. And they're interrupted by a police officer coming in to basically be dissatisfied with their electronics and stuff, and they start getting angry phone calls. And it looks like it's going to be some sort of a, villain is turning all the populace against the Fantastic Four. But then it just fizzles out and nothing comes of it at this moment. And so they go back to playing around with Sue's invisibility powers. And long story short, the way the new additions to her power works is she can make herself invisible, she can make something else invisible, or she can make the force fields. But she can only do one at a time. And so she goofs around with this, and then all of a sudden, all the civilians are back complaining about various things the Fantastic Four are doing. And they shoot them off and start randomly reading the newspaper, where they discover that an island is for sale off the coast of New Jersey. So they decide they're just going to buy the island and put all the shit that people are mad about out on the island so that they stop complaining. And they go to this island, and they're exploring around for a while, and all of a sudden their ship sinks. And Johnny tries to go in after it, but depending on the issue you're reading, sometimes fire doesn't work underwater. So Johnny's extinguished, and Reed has to haul him out of the water. And when they're drying him off, they see some weird but strangely familiar figure running in the distance, and it runs into a cave. And so they chase him into the cave and immediately get taken out by fallen rocks. And oh shit, it's the Mole Man.
Whoa!
What a surprise. So it was, and he reveals that he orchestrated the whole thing, and so it was some sort of villain turning all the populace against the Fantastic Four, although they really slacked on explaining how he did it. Like, he didn't have a hate raid or something. He just somehow arranged it through methods. But after he gloats, he throws all the Fantastic Four into a hole, and they land on some mesh floor surrounded by walls that give off radiation and will just, I guess, burn them up if they touch it, although Ben gets about 3 inches away from the wall and is completely fine. And the Mole Man is sitting on a throne watching them and gloating about how it's only radioactive from the inside, so they're safe on the outside. He reveals that when they sunk his island back in issue 1, he escaped through his underground tunnels and just rallied his forces to try again. And he built some machine to just lower cities into the ground. And he's going to do that to Washington and Moscow and trigger war between the Russians and the U.S., who both will think that the other did it to them. And then after everyone's destroyed each other in World War III, he'll be able to just go up on the surface and take over. And so he goes and tries to push his... He goes and tries to push his destroy everything button, but he can't hit it. No matter what he does, he can't get close to it because Sue's put a force field around it. So he does what one does when you're having trouble operating a delicate piece of electronics, and grabs a baseball bat and tries to hit it with that. But Sue's force field protects that too. And then she puts a force field around the rest of the Fantastic Four, and they just climb out of the pit and start beating up moloids. And things are going pretty well until the Mole Man reveals that he thought they might escape from their pit and had individual traps rigged up for each one of them. And so they all fall into their trapdoors. And Ben lands in some sort of like weird foam that he can't move in, and he's going to drown in it. But fortunately, he finds the pipes forcing the foam into the room and just climbs along them. So he gets out that way and starts crawling through ducts. And Sue is sent to, the only place you would put a woman in, the kitchen. And she's informed that somewhere in the room, the exit is hidden, and she has to find it before the room is filled with nerve gas. So she starts searching around, and then in some true comic book bullshit, she decides that if she can turn visible things invisible, she must also be able to turn invisible things visible. So she does that and sees the door and gets out before the nerve gas is released.
One could say
But-
she was looking for the exit.
Yes.
My turn.
But then we cut over to... I'm not going to give you the satisfaction.
you really just let that one sit in the silence for a second.
Yes.
Oh my, I'll let you continue.
I'm going to let you bury yourself. Of course I am. But then we cut over to Reed, who's just getting nerve gassed. No fancy traps for him, just mustard gas. So he curls up into a great big ball and starts expanding himself until he busts out the wall and just gets up and starts crawling away. And finally we cut over to Johnny, whose trap consists of ice jets that freeze him whenever he tries to flame on. So he just lets them freeze him until it gets cold enough that icicles form. And then he takes an icicle and starts smashing out the devices in the wall. And after he does that, he can just burn his way free. And we cut back. The Fantastic Four all manage to arrive and start fighting with the Mole Man some more. And eventually he realizes they can't be beat, so he just goes and gets into his ducts and runs away. And the Fantastic Four find their... and Reed tells them to stop fighting with all his minions and stop searching for him. They just need to go right now. So they go running through the tunnels until they find a submarine that they use to escape. And then it's revealed that Mr. Fantastic used the Mole Man's... or rewired the Mole Man's device, so instead of it destroying Moscow and Washington, it just destroyed his own island. And they sail off into the sunset at the end.
Yay. I had a note here that it was a good thing that Reed isn't evil.
Yeah, no, that would never happen.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm pretty sure he is. He just tried to murder this man with exploding islands twice.
Yeah. So that was certainly an issue of Fantastic Four, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was something I read.
You know what? I still gave this one 3 stars. I mostly liked this one for the expansion of Sue's powers. Mole Man's still a shitty little film, but, you know, it's Mole Man.
This was fine. I mean, it was one issue. I loved that they gave Sue more powers. Like, that needed to happen. She actually feels like she's on the power level with the rest of the team now.
Desperately needed to happen.
Yeah. And nothing was bad about the encounter with Mole Man. It's just Mole Man. I'm not going to get excited about it, but didn't mind it.
Fair enough. I don't really have much more to say about that one, really. I mean, when's his next appearance, I guess? It's not for a little bit. 31, issue 31, he comes back. So 9 issues, okay. Not too long.
I think when he turns up, it says... Oh, no, it is... Oh, I know what 31 is.
I think it's a 2-parter, possibly, too.
No, it's not a 2-parter.
Okay.
It's not the one I was thinking of. It's just a random Mole Man story.
Oh, fun. Those are always great. But, yeah.
But it's 9 issues away, so that's almost a year. That's not bad.
Yeah. I think by that point, it's when they start getting to the stretches of titles too. So.
Yeah, I think it's the last Fantastic Four before it really starts like being the good story too, like the best comic they're publishing too.
Probably.
Because it's early 30s that the Galactus arc happens, and that's really when it pops off and is just consistently excellent for like 80 or 90 issues.
Yeah. The peak of Fantastic Four, which is pretty sad because
it probably is the peak because the peak certainly isn't in the 70s.
Yeah. It's kind of wild. I don't know if there's ever been another team that has peaked so early and never gotten back to that level necessarily. I mean, Fantastic Four have had good to great stories throughout the years, but I don't know. Fantastic Four has always seemed better looking back on it than looking at it in the present for a lot of people. I think I'd be correct in saying. So I don't know. But anyways, let's move on to our main event before we go into our monthly segments. And we're going to end this week's off with Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos issue number 5, At the Mercy of Baron Strucker. This is Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, of course, one of their big titles. George Russo's is on inks here. And we got Sam Rosen on letters, and this is a November 1963 release. This is a 23-page story, and Sergeant Fury is my title, apparently, so I'm going to continue taking it. I get to try to keep track of who's who. So yeah, let's. I actually don't have many notes for this one either, so this should be interesting. We are told to not dare miss the electrifying ending at the mercy of Baron Strucker. And we are told how the dreaded Nazi Baron Strucker defeats Nick Fury in hand-to-hand combat. So, here we go. We open up with some normal Howler shenanigans, but we see Nick Fury is talking to his team. He's like, last time out we lost Junior Juniper. I want to say Jupiter every time that comes up. Junior Juniper. And he's like, if we lose a man, it means somebody slipped up. Somebody was careless. And that
so
means
I'm going to try to murder you.
So, yes. And they essentially also just blame Junior for his own death here at some point. So we see Fury put his men to work and friggin' tries to kill them, as Bill said.
I'll give Fury credit. Junior's death was totally his own fault.
It technically was, but it's a little messed up to say.
It's harsh, but Fury's trying to keep them alive, and Junior did run into a hail of gunfire.
So we see at one point here, Dum Dum Duggan jokes that he only joined the army to get away from his wife, so that was fun. They continue. This is a lot of filler at the start for this one.
Yeah, we get like 5 pages or something of training.
Yeah, they just keep training and training. Fury whipping them into shape so no more men die. It's
great character work, but it's hard to summarize.
It is, yes. Sergeant Fury continues to be one of the most consistently good titles, in my opinion. I haven't read a bad issue of it yet. Saying as I've only read 7 issues, but it's been really good.
I'd argue issue 1 wasn't great, but the rest of it's been good.
Yeah, my rating on issue 1 was higher than it arguably should have been. I was just excited to read the title. But I still think I gave it 4 stars. I still think it would have earned a 3 stars, so I still think it was good.
I gave it a begrudging 3-star, but I felt it didn't have the campy fun that the later issues have. It was just kind of boring machismo. Yeah,
and that assessment's fair. I still would say it's one of the more consistent titles, though.
Absolutely.
After that first issue, they really focused on the team's personalities and stuff, so it got better. But we then go over to a castle in Bavaria, where we meet the General Baron von Strucker, or Baron Strucker, as I could say. So we see Baron Strucker is dueling in the dueling hall, practicing, and he keeps beating people. So he is, I believe he's given them
a cameo.
That's good. I believe he is given the mission here to destroy the infamous Commando Sergeant Nicholas Fury. That's exactly where it says it. So Baron Strucker is tasked to take down Fury. So they send a message over to Fury via a plane that starts shooting at them, shoots Dum Dum's laundry to bits.
Oh, it's not Dum Dums. Those are... who is it that's with him? They don't... It's Izzy.
Izzy's
had those long johns all across Europe, and he doesn't want anything to happen to him, but he gets Dum-Dum to wash him for him. Dum-Dum immediately gets them shot by a plane.
Yes. So a note is delivered from this plane that's calls for Fury to meet up with Baron von Strucker to meet on the Isle of North Haven in the English Channel near Jutland for a fight to the finish. So Fury's like, "What's this?" as he approaches, and he reads the note, and he gets real angry, and he's like, he goes to talk to Happy Sam. He's like, "I need to take this guy up in a duel," and Happy Sam's like, "Fuck no." But Fury's like, "Fuck this, I'm going anyway." And we see his love interest, who I forget the name of for a moment, and
Pamela Hawley.
Thank you, Pamela Hawley.
Thanks, Dan. I literally wouldn't have remembered it if it wasn't written in the text box right in front of me.
That's the difference between you and me. I'm not reading all that. So he meets up, like the note said, and we get ready for a duel between Baron Strucker and Nick Fury. But before they duel, they take what Baron calls what's the word I'm looking for? It's a traditional little toast to drink before the duel commences. But what Nick Fury doesn't know is they put a pill in his drink. So Fury is weakened, which allows Baron Strucker to win the duel. Fury still comes to its win the first, but pretty quickly Fury succumbs to the pill in his drink. And they do not kill Fury. It's not really a fight to the finish. They don't kill him, as Baron Strucker thinks it would be a better message to leave Fury alive and embarrassed by how he was defeated, even though they totally cheated. So they throw him out of their plane and let him go down back to Earth and feel the repercussions of losing this battle, as Happy Sam is pissed off that Nick Fury went to the battle and lost, and he is here demoted from sergeant to private. Is it?
Yeah, and the reason they let him live is because they had all the German press there.
Yes.
Take pictures of him after he was unconscious, and they posted it all over the news. So if they killed him, then the Allies would have gotten some other commando leader that could potentially be like super dangerous still, but because they have the disgraced Fury as their figurehead, it's a huge propaganda win, which they felt was more important than killing one sergeant.
If there's one thing the Nazis are best at, it's propaganda. So there we go. So we have a disgraced Fury for why he was down in his luck here. The Commandos are sent on a mission here, and we see... Is that a... I think the Howlers set a trap here for the Nazis.
They strung a line across the road.
The guy on the bike looks like he's wearing a Howler uniform, but he's not. So it's hard to tell.
Yeah, the colorist miscolored the German uniform, but he's got one of the German helmets on it.
Yeah. So the Howlers sprint a trap. There you go. Fury comes face to face. Well, Fury and the Commandos come face to face with Baron Strucker and his fellow Nazis again. They go and prepare for another duel, and Baron Strucker's gonna try the same trick twice, but I believe it's Dino that is like, hold on, Fury. This toast, this has been something that plays in B movies all the time. They totally drugged you. Fury's like, oh, that makes sense. So he knocks the cups out of Strucker's hands. It's like, you motherfucker, you cheated. So Fury handily beats Baron Strucker up real quick here. You could say he buries him. And they return to their post, and Fury ends the issue being promoted back to sergeant again.
But he's promoted in a truly truly Howler manner, because once Happy Sam informs him that he's getting promoted back to sergeant, they just mug another random sergeant that's walking by and steal the stripes off his uniform.
Yes. Which is hilarious. And we're told that things are back to normal for the Howlers, but you can bet they won't stay that way for long. Not with Nick Fury in charge, and we're told not to miss the spectacular surprise-filled 6th issue of the Howling Commandos, and that we'll want to be here. So, pretty fun issue.
I really liked this one. This was my favorite Sergeant Fury so far.
Wow, nice. I still think I give the last one an edge still. I really did enjoy this one. This one and the last one were both up there for being probably my favorite so far. I still only gave this one 3 stars, but it was a high 3.
Same with me.
Yeah.
It was a tough call between 3 and 4. I went with 3 because ultimately, well, it was a fun read. There was nothing exceptional about it. And I didn't like the way they ended up handling Baron Strucker for someone that would become a major figure in the Marvel Universe. It's kind of disappointing that he got taken out with like one punch when he wasn't cheating.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said he got buried.
Yeah.
He kind of does get buried there in the second battle.
He does, but they didn't really intend for him to be a recurring villain at this point.
No, they didn't. And you can feel that. When does he return? Let me check.
It's pretty soon. 9.
9, issue 9, okay. So, not the issue next for me, but the issue after. So yeah, pretty fun issue. I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say on it. But yeah. So, before we go into our monthly segments, let us just promote next week's episode here. So, make sure to come back next week. We have some fun entries here next week. We will be starting off with X-Men issue number 3, which sees the debut of the Blob in a surprisingly fun story.
That's debatable.
Okay, to one of us, a surprisingly fun story. Maybe I'm just a carny who likes circus acts. We see Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos issue number 6 coming back to Howling Commandos title right away, and what actually is my favorite issue so far that we'll be reading.
Oh fuck! I just read that this one is about that. That's an ambitious concept for a comic. Going after Rommel.
Yes, it's a. I'll spoil already. I gave that one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, so I hope you feel the same. So
it's
then
been getting consistently better, so very possibly.
We then go into Strange Tales issue number 117, with the A story, of course, being a Johnny Storm story, who is this time doing
the Eel
what?
is back.
Oh yes, how could I forget? The Eel returns. One of the greatest villains in comics history returns. I say that wholeheartedly, of course. So that's fun. And then in the B story, we get a Doctor Strange story as he fights Baron Mordo for the 15,000th time. I'm just kidding. It's only been like 5. I don't know.
It's a lot for the amount of Doctor Strange stories that have been published. That's when I was starting to get bored of Mordo.
Yeah, well, he's the Loki of this title. And then
Dormammu can't come along soon enough.
Yeah. Fantastic Four 23 then happens as the Fantastic Four fall into the master plan of Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom returns again. So, Doctor Doom may be back, but that doesn't guarantee a good issue, believe it or not.
It's not really a Doom story.
Yeah, it's not, to be fair. Oh, I just remembered what happens. Yeah, it's not really a Doom story. It's a story brought to us by Doom, essentially.
It's Doom introducing a concept that gets used an awful lot in comics that I wish wasn't, because it's never good.
Yeah, we'll leave the fun of that issue for next week, and then the next week's episode will end on the high note. Relative high note of Amazing Spider-Man issue number 9, where we meet the man called Electro.
It's a pretty high note if you're not Dan.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's definitely a high
like
note.
this
It's just
one.
debatable how high. So yeah. Also, I guess before we go into our monthly segments, before anybody might decide to tune out that is watching, that if you haven't yet seen it, go and watch our bonus episode of the month, which was our Halloween picks episode. It was done in 2 hour recorded, but it was really fun. I would say by quite a bit our best bonus episode yet. We had a lot of fun. Our personalities really came out, and we recommend you give that one a watch. It's really...
We got to cut loose in a way we can't do in the more informative issues.
We recommended a lot of good movies. Well, some of us recommended a lot of good movies.
Some of us like Rob Zombie's Halloween.
I wonder who that was.
Not going to name any names.
It may be one of the two
did.
people talking to you. But anyway. Now, with that being said, and me considering all my life choices, we will move on to our monthly segments. And I think this time we should just start with the... I forget what order we normally go in, but I think we should start with the poll list.
I think it's normally poll list and then into the...
Okay, good.
Other one, and even if it isn't, we should do poll list first because it's going to be less interesting going forward.
Exactly. The poll list one is a fun concept, but some of these for a while probably won't see a lot of changes. So they're going to be a relatively quick segment when we get to it, like this month, as I believe. Well, Bill, you what were your changes to the poll list?
There aren't any.
Exactly.
It was mostly Thor. I don't mind the Thors. They're good enough. I'd be buying them compared to the relative quality of the other comics at the time.
Yeah.
And, I'm already not buying Ant-Man or Giant Man, so bad Giant Man isn't going to change anything.
Yeah, so to remind people, Bill's poll list that is staying the same currently is Journey in the Mystery, Amazing Spider-Man, Strange Tales, Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos, Fantastic Four, X-Men, and Tales of Suspense. So that's 7 titles. And now we'll go into mine to remind everybody. Right now, from last month, mine is Fantastic Four, Tales of Suspense, Amazing Spider-Man, Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos, X-Men, and Strange Tales. So that's 6 titles. And as of this month, our poll list will be looking the same, as I will be adding Journey in the Mystery this month, as now the Tales of Asgard are in full swing, and the A stories are slightly getting better, some of them. I will be comfortable enough saying that Thor is now officially added to my poll list. So that pretty much covers the poll list segment this month. And Dan, of course, is still pulling Tales of Suspense. Well, we think.
That may
we
have
haven't
changed
talked
if
to
he
him.
was here.
Yeah.
Because
we'll
I know
just say
he was pretty down on some of the Iron Mans this month, but he's not here to take it off his list, so he's pulling Tales of Suspense.
Yeah, exactly.
If he doesn't like it, he'll get a job that doesn't interfere with our podcast.
Moving on to our best and worst comics of the month. What order do you want to do? Probably worst and then best, maybe?
Yeah,
or
worst
do you want
and
to do
best, but before we dive into that, I should give us a quick rundown of what we're talking about.
Yeah, go ahead and give us a title rundown for the month.
Alright, so we had Fantastic Four 21 with the Hate Monger, Tales of Suspense 48 with the new Iron Man armor and Mr. Doll, Tales to Astonish number 50, the first part of the Human Top, Tales to Astonish 51 A Story, the second part of Human Top, Tales to Astonish 51 B Story, Somewhere Waits a Wabo, the first of the terrible Wasp backups, Strange Tales 116 A Story with the Puppet Master. The B story of Strange Tales is Doctor Strange Fighting Nightmare. Amazing Spider-Man 8 A story is The Living Brain, and the B story is Spider-Man and Johnny. Tales of Suspense 49 A story is Iron Man and the Angel, and the B story is another... that one's a Watcher backup, I think. It's the Saga of the Sneepers anyway. I couldn't be arsed to look it up this afternoon. It's not very memorable. Journey into Mystery 99. A story is Mr. Hyde. And then the 100, the A story, is Hyde trying to steal the submarine. Then the C story of 99 is Surtur the Fire Demon, and 100 is Thor and Loki versus Storm Giants. 101 A story is part 1 of Zarko, and 102 A story is Iron Man in the Future with Zarko. 103 A story is The Enchantress and the Executioner. 104 A story is when Loki sent some storm giants and Surtur to Earth to try to, or Midgard to try to kill Odin when he was out. And then 101 C story is the invasion of Asgard. Actually, that's the stuff we covered today. You know what we talked about.
Yeah. So, on that note, I think we should start with what our worst titles of the month were. What a worst title of the month, I should say. So, what was yours? I think yours is more obvious, so we'll start with yours.
Mine is Tales to Astonish number 51, the A story. I did not like the human top, and the second part was more disappointing than the first. At least the first one had him coming to terms with being Giant Man.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from, though I enjoyed the human top two-parter more than you did, by a decent amount. I mean, it's giant. It was gonna be a Giant Man issue, pretty much. So, at this point, so yeah. Saying that it was gonna be a Giant Man issue at this point, I didn't choose a Giant Man issue.
You didn't have a lot of choices if you liked human top.
So I went with a title that I really would hope and not expect to ever mention near the worst of the month list, but I really did not like the story. And now that I'm saying this, it might be written back to Bill's memory, but I fucking hated that B story of Amazing Spider-Man issue number 8.
I already started typing Amazing Spider-Man into the list as soon as you said it's something I never wanted to see around the worst list.
I knew that would give it to you. Yeah, no, that story was almost character assassination for me. I didn't like it. I gave it 1 star. I hated it. I'm never reading that one again.
That's fair. I didn't hate it nearly as much as you, but there's not really anything good about it. It was just a quick little 6 or 7 pages.
When you start to make, when it starts to make Human Torch look like the good guy between Spider-Man and Human Torch, I don't know. Something feels wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not a good story. It's just
also
worse this month, in my opinion.
Sue flirting with a teenage Peter Parker doesn't help. So
yeah, that was creepy as fuck. But in her defense, he wears a mask. She didn't know he's only 15.
That's also true. And it's the 60s, so a little leeway, but not much. But yeah, on to some... this is why we go worst to best, because we end on the high notes.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to finish off our episode burying Spider-Man.
Yeah, we really don't. That's Chad. God, thank God Dan's not here. He would have got a heyday out of that.
I think it would have been his worst too, honestly.
No, he liked it more than me. He probably would have said the A story was the worst.
That's very possible, but I think Spider-Man 8 would have been on his list.
Yeah. But moving on to our best, and I'll let Bill go first again because I don't know. I want to see if we have the same one.
I suspect we will, as long as that one is Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos, issue number 5.
Oh, wow. Okay. We don't have the same one.
I can say in all honesty, the only story we covered this month that I really liked instead of was just like, it's all right, like it's not bad, was this one.
Realistically, that probably could have been my pick. Part of it was me trying not to show favoritism towards that title, but I was really racking my brain before we started recording, as Bill saw, and I used the ratings to help me a little bit this month because I just couldn't really remember how I felt about a lot of these titles because it's not a memorable month for me. It's a lot of just okay titles. So I used the ratings to help me out, and then I feel a lot better after we went through the synopsises this week about my pick. I actually am gonna... I feel good enough to give my best title of the month to Avengers issue number 3. I thought the title was a lot of fun. This time, I actually think that the story progression, them trying to carry over continuity, is pretty good. I like them getting to a more recognizable point with the Hulk. I do think Namor's presence actually brought the issue down a bit in points, but the Hulk-Namor team-up is still kind of fun. But, yeah. I go with Avengers issue 3.
And that is completely valid. I can't think of any argument to call you on saying that was your favorite. Like, that was a really good issue.
It is interesting to note that both our best picks were from this week.
Yeah, well, this was a challenging month because it was a lot of just mediocrity.
Well, it was also a lot of Thor, and, well, Thor is slightly getting better. If I was going to choose which Thor was my best, I probably would have said the 5-page Heimdall just because it had Heimdall in it. Or issue 104's A story just because of... Or 103 since it's Anderson, like Executioner, but 104 also had Odin and everybody getting called up from Tales of Asgard, so...
The art kept 104 off, for me. I do need to, at this point, now that we're 3 months into summarizing this, I need to point out a certain... unwanted award that I have to mention.
Oh, okay.
Tales of Astonish has managed to be on our worst list more times than we have months.
Sounds right.
We have 2 Tales of Astonish from September, one from October, and one from this month, despite being down a Dan. So... At this point, it's fairly safe to say Giant Man is the worst character we cover, and the best character we cover is Spider-Man.
Yeah, that sounds a bit right.
Because we have 3 best of Spider-Mans and 1 worst Spider-Man, so I'd say that's 2 best Spider-Mans, which is still the best of anything we have. Our bests have been pretty spread out.
Yeah. I also try to take into account to not be too biased with my best and see what I genuinely enjoyed instead of just going with my favorite character too. So,
yeah. Spider-Man wasn't making the list this month, I think, even if you were biased.
Yeah, no, issue 8 was not the best Spider-Man. Saying that, it wasn't like the A story I still enjoyed.
Probably the worst issue in the first 100.
Probably.
I know. Yeah. I was looking at it the other day. At this point, I'm like 140, 150 issues in, and I think there's maybe 3 total issues that I've given below 3 stars.
Before issue 8, I would have said that issue 2 was probably the worst because it had that Alien and Tinkerer story for the B story.
Yeah, that one was not good, but compared to this, it was fucking Shakespeare.
It shows how bad it is, considering the fact they don't bring the fucking Tinkerer back until issue 100-something.
Yeah, I just read Tinkerer's Return literally like 2 weeks ago. Yeah,
so that tells you. But yeah, I guess here we are at the end of the episode, though. Decent sized episode for considering half the stories are 5 pages. But yeah, if you enjoyed, if you're on YouTube, please leave a like, subscribe, comment, and share if you'd like to. Now that we're doing this in video form, this YouTube is the version we recommend you click. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And if you're on Spotify, give a click on the poll that's available, which title is your favorite that we covered today. And anyway, guys, we will see you on the next one, which will hopefully include Dan. And I'm on vacation now, so next week we can also hopefully record this and get this out earlier than normal, possibly. So let's see. And we hope you enjoy, and we'll see you all next time. Peace out.
No one tell Dan what we're covering last.